Progress in cartography during the early Middle Ages was slight. The medieval mapmaker seems to have been dominated by the Church, reflecting in his work the ecclesiastical dogmas and interpretations of Scripture. In fact, during the 6th century, Constantine of Antioch created a Christian topography depicting the Earth as a flat disk. Thus the Roman map of the world, along with other concepts, continued as authoritative for many centuries. A contemporary Chinese map shows that the country occupies most of the world, while the Roman Empire dominates most other maps produced during early Christian times. Later medieval mapmakers were aware of the Earth's sphericity, but for the most part, maps remained small and schematic, as exemplified by the T and O renderings, so named from the stylized T form of the major water bodies separating the continents and the O as the circumfluent ocean surrounding the world. The orientation with the east at the top of the map was often used, as the word suggests. The earliest navigators coasted from headland to headland. They did not require charts until the adoption of the magnetic compass made it possible to proceed directly from one port to another. The earliest record of the magnetic compass in Europe is followed within a century by the earliest record of a sea chart. This was shown to Louis IX, King of France, on the occasion of his participation in the Eighth Crusade in 1270. The earliest surviving chart dates from within a few years of this event. Found in Pisa and known as the Carta Pisana, it is now in the Bibliothèque Nationale, in Paris. Thought to have been made about 1275, it is hand-drawn on a sheepskin and depicts the entire Mediterranean Sea. Such charts, often known as portolans named for the portolano or pilot book, listing sailing courses, ports, and anchorages, were much in demand for the increasing trade and shipping. Genoa, Pisa, Venice, Majorca, and Barcelona, among others, cooperated in providing information garnered from their pilots and captains. From repeated revisions, and new surveys by compass, the portolan charts eventually surpassed all preceding maps in accuracy and reliability. The first portolans were hand-drawn and very expensive. They were based entirely on magnetic directions and map projections that assumed a degree of longitude equal to a degree of latitude. The assumption did little harm in the Mediterranean but caused serious distortions in maps of higher latitudes. The development of line engraving and the availability, in the 16th century, of large sheets of smooth-surfaced paper facilitated the mass production of charts, which soon replaced the manuscript portolans. Many specimens of portolan charts have survived. Though primarily of areas of the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, some covered the Atlantic as far as Ireland, and others the western coast of Africa. Their most striking feature is the system of compass roses, showing directions from various points, and lines showing shortest navigational routes. Another phenomenon of the late Middle Ages was the great enthusiasm generated by the travels of Marco Polo in the 1270s and 1280s. New information about faraway places, and the stimulation of interest in world maps, promoted their sale and circulation. Marco Polo's experiences also kindled the desire for travel and exploration in others and were, perhaps, a harbinger of the great age of discovery and exploration. During Europe's Dark Ages, Islamic and Chinese cartography made progress. The Arabs translated Ptolemy's treatises and carried on his tradition. Two Islamic scholars deserve special note. Ibn Hawqal wrote a book of ways and provinces illustrated with maps, and Al-Idrisi constructed a world map in 1154 for the Christian king Roger of Sicily, showing better information on Asian areas than had been available theretofore. In Baghdad, astronomers used the compass long before Europeans, studied the obliquity of the ecliptic, and measured a part of the Earth's meridian. Their sexagesimal system has dominated cartography since, in the concept of a 360-degree circle. Mapmaking, like so many other aspects of art and science, developed independently in China. The oldest known Chinese map is dated about 1137. Most of the area that is now included in China had been mapped in crude form before the arrival of the Europeans. The Jesuit missionaries of the 16th century found enough information to prepare an atlas, and Chinese maps thereafter were influenced by the West. The fall of Byzantium sent many refugees to Italy, among them scholars who had preserved some of the old Greek manuscripts, including Ptolemy's Geography, from destruction. The rediscovery of this great work came at a fortunate time because the recent development of a printing industry capable of handling map reproduction made possible its circulation far beyond the few scholars who otherwise would have enjoyed access to it. This, together with a general reawakening of scholarship and interest in exploration, created a golden era of cartography. The geography was translated into Latin in about 1405. Although it had not been completely lost, recovery of the complete work, with maps, greatly stimulated general interest in cartography. About 500 copies of the geography were printed at Bologna in 1477, followed by other editions printed in Germany and Italy. The printing process, in addition to permitting the wide diffusion of geographic knowledge, retained the fidelity of the original works. By 1600, 31 Latin or Italian editions had been printed. Progress in other technologies such as navigation, ship design, and construction, instruments for observation and astronomy, and general use of the compass tended continuously to improve existing map information, as well as to encourage further exploration and discovery. Accordingly, geographic knowledge was profoundly increased during the 15th and 16th centuries. The great discoveries of Columbus, da Gama, Vespucci, Cabot, Magellan, and others gradually transformed the world maps of those days. Modern maps were added to later editions of Ptolemy. The earliest was a map of northern Europe drawn at Rome in 1427 by Claudius Clausen Swart, a Danish geographer. Cardinal Nicholas Krebs drew the first modern map of Germany, engraved in 1491. Martin Waldseemüller of St. Dieppe prepared an edition with more than 20 modern maps in 1513. Maps showing discoveries and information were at last transcending the classical treatises of Ptolemy. The most important aspect of post-medieval maps was their increasing accuracy, made possible by continuing exploration. Another significant characteristic was a trend toward artistic and colorful rendition, for the map still had many open areas in which the artist could indulge his imagination. The cartouche, or title block, became more and more elaborate, amounting to a small work of art. Many of the map editions of this age have become collector's items. The first map printings were made from woodcuts. Later they were engraved on copper, a process that made it possible to reproduce much finer lines. The finished plates were inked and wiped, leaving ink in the cut lines. Dampened paper was then pressed on the plate and into the engraved line work, resulting in very fine impressions. The process remained the basis of fine map reproduction until the comparatively recent advent of photolithography. The cosmography, textbooks of geography, astronomy, history, and natural sciences, all illustrated with maps and figures, first appeared in the 16th century. One of the earliest and best known was that of Petrus Apianus in 1524, the popularity of which extended to 15 more editions. That of Sebastian Münster, published in 1544, was larger and remained authoritative and in demand until the end of the century, reflecting the general eagerness of the times for learning, especially geography. The foremost cartographer of the Age of Discovery was Gerhard Kramer, known as Gerardus Mercator, of Flanders. Well-educated and a student of Gemma Frisius of Leuven, a noted cosmographer, he became a maker of globes and maps. His map of Europe, published in 1554, and his development of the projection that bears his name made him famous. The Mercator projection solved an age-old problem of navigators, enabling them to plot bearings as straight lines. Other well-known and productive cartographers of the Dutch-Flemish school are Abraham Ortelius, who prepared the first modern world atlas in 1570. Gerard de Jode, and Jadocus Hondius. Early Dutch maps were among the best for artistic expression, composition, and rendering. Juan de la Cosa, the owner of Columbus' flagship, Santa Maria, in 1500 produced a map recording Columbus' discoveries, the landfall of Cabral in Brazil, Cabot's voyage to Canada, and da Gama's route to India. The first map showing North and South America separated from Asia was produced in 1507 by Martin Waldseemüller. An immense map, 412 by 8 feet, printed in 12 sheets, it is probably the first map on which the name America appeared, indicating that Waldseemüller was impressed by the account written by the Florentine navigator Amerigo Vespucci. In 1529 Diego Ribeiro, cosmographer to the King of Spain, made a new chart of the world on which the vast extent of the Pacific was first shown. Survivors of Magellan's circumnavigation of the world had arrived in Sevilla in 1522, giving Ribeiro much new information. The first known terrestrial globe that has survived was made by Martin Behaim at Nuremberg in 1492. Many others were made throughout the 16th century. The principal centers of cartographic activity were Spain, Portugal, Italy, the Rhineland, the Netherlands, and Switzerland. England and France, with their growing maritime and colonial power, were soon to become primary map and chart centers. Captain John Smith's maps of Virginia and New England, the first to come from the English colonies, were published in London in 1612. Many others depicting the New World would follow throughout the 17th century. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more videos.